Got a treat for you all. I guess I should say y'all, but then people say I'm pretending I'm from the South, and we all know I'm a New Yorker. We have Dave Rubin, also a New Yorker, joining us now. He is the host of the Rubin Report and has a new book out. Don't burn this book. We will adhere to that request, but we will show you the book and talk to you about the book right now. Mr. Dave Rubin, first time in the Freedom Hut, sir. Welcome.
Buck, it's good to be with you. You are in New York. I am in L.A. All of the free people of America live between us, and yet we talk about freedom from these tyrannical, authoritarian cities. What have we done wrong in our lives? That's the question.
I have to reach out to friends of mine who live in places like Georgia and Texas and Florida and just bring them on the show so that there are de facto freedom correspondents. I'm like, what is it like to have a governor who does not think that you can just lock people endlessly in their homes as a result of all this? And, you know, they just had the study come out, I think the United study out of Stanford. Yeah, this is about 2.8 times worse than the flu. So roughly 3 times worse than the flu for mortality. We're gonna lock ourselves in. I mean, in California or in Cali, how long do you think it's going to get extended out there?
Well, Buck, let's not forget also that, you know, it's not just that we're locked in our houses, but we also get the benefit of the super high taxes. So it's working out. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
As far as the lockdown, I mean, look, now they're telling us August 1st. I live in SoCal, in L.A. It is 85 and sunny today. It was 85 and sunny yesterday. It was 85 and sunny every day last week. You pay the taxes to live here so that you can go to the beach, so you can enjoy the weather, so that you can go hiking, all that stuff. I mean, they've stripped that from us, you know, on top of the fact that you can't go to a restaurant or anything else. But the bigger issue than the specifics of that, obviously, is that they just feel, and this is very consistent with progressive thinking in general, they feel that because they say something, that already has given it moral weight and that it's right in and of itself. So August 1st, well, we're not going to tell you why August 1st, and we're not going to say, oh, maybe beaches at half capacity. We're saying no beaches. They just believe that because they say it is divine right. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people that live in these cities and states, these blue places, they don't realize that is just a fundamentally flawed way of looking at the world and having people govern you. So I'm considering all options. I'm really not happy right now. And, you know, for guys like us that talk for a living, it's like we talk about freedom. We talk about, you know, individual rights, living life for yourself and your family and all of those things. And yet we live in states that are completely out of whack with those ideals. And I am feeling that the rubber is meeting the road right now.
Yeah, I used to tell myself that I was behind liberal insanity lines. You know, I mean, I grew up here also, and I kind of didn't want to relinquish that. I didn't want to give up because there's at least about 1 million and change registered Republicans in New York City. I know, you know, L.A. County has got to have, I know you guys are outvoted there, but L.A. County's got to have over 1 million Republicans in it. I know Orange County's got a bunch of, so you don't want to like abandon your people. But then I also start to think, but I'm funding this monstrosity that is the Cuomo de Blasio axis of control. I'm actually sending them a check in a couple of months here, you know, sending these guys money. So, but just putting a pause in that for, and don't even, just one more thing. If they lock you down until August, I just want to say, based on everything that I've seen and read, and I'm talking to doctors, and doctors will speak to me. I don't know if you've had the same experience, and they're like, don't use my name and don't, because they're afraid not just of their hospital getting wind of them speaking without going through the press office, which has been a problem, especially in the early days of COVID, but they're afraid that their peers who are very politicized don't want that. It's kind of like the climate change thing. Like, you better be on board with the consensus here on an issue where there can't be any consensus. I mean, COVID, there's a lot we don't know. Have you had that too with docs you speak to? I'm sure you got friends out on the West Coast too.
Oh, I've got friends on the West Coast. I've got a good friend who's a doctor in Texas. I've got a friend who's a doctor at a hospital in Long Island. I'm talking to all sorts of people, and yeah, nobody wants to go on the record just to share their thoughts if the thoughts are a little bit out of mainstream, which, by the way, is a hell of a segue to my book, because that's exactly the purpose of the book, that good people are no longer saying what they think, not because they're bigots or racists or politically radical or anything like that, but because they fear that this machine, this outrage machine, cancel culture, the mob, whatever you want to call it, that it is going to come for their job, it is going to come for their family and the rest of it. And I think too many people think, oh, if I just kind of sit it out or if I just kind of wait, that I'll be spared. But, you know, that's the frog in the boiling pot. And as I say, it never ends well for the frog.
We're talking to Dave Rubin. The book is Don't Burn This Book, and we have promised not to do that. But we also encourage you to go buy it on Amazon or wherever you get books. I've actually started listening to books on tape during quarantine, which has been a new thing for me. But Dave, how do we, this is the great problem I find of most, really a lot of conservative commentary, not even just about books, is that we identify problems that are all too real that people are aware of. Right? We'll talk about mainstream media bias, which is a very real problem. I mean, we're all quite aware of this. I worked at CNN as an analyst years ago, and we see this. But then it's always, well, okay, it's kind of fun to poke at their hypocrisy and their stupidity, but there's always the what do we do about it. I'm sure you get into what do we do about it, but you're an even-tempered and realistic guy. So tell me, what can we actually do about what you're talking about, which is the cancel culture, shut your mouth or else world that we're living in now?
Yeah, so at the individual level, there's only one answer. It's the easy answer, and it's also the impossible answer, which is you just have to speak up. You have to find a way to be brave enough to speak up. That's at the individual level. For what you're talking about, for people like us that are public people that speak about these things, one of the things I've been thinking about lately is we can all rail against CNN and the New York Times all the time, and they're awful. They are shells of their former selves. I can tell you, my book's been out for 2 weeks. We made the New York Times bestseller list 2 weeks. They did not want to put us on there. And, they don't even do it by the number of books sold, because I think we would have been number 3 week 1. They put us at number 11. And then in their print version, they only list the top 10. Like, they do so many shady things. And I only bring that up, not to pat myself on the back, but just to show if they're messing around with numbers of books sold, what else do you think they're messing around with when it comes to editorial and their news coverage? What stories do they ignore for weeks, like Tara Reid? Where, if it was Kavanaugh, we know what they would have done or what they did do, as a matter of fact. So I think for guys like us, we have to kind of decide how much time do we want to devote to the crumbling institutions versus building better institutions. I think that's what I've been trying to do independently here. I think that's what you guys are trying to do at the First. And it's like, just keep building. Just keep building. Those guys will crumble. The only reason anyone knows Brian Stelter is because he sits in a chair of a show called Reliable Sources, which should have been called Unreliable Sources, and then I would have no problem with it. But that was a show that Howard Kurtz had, for 20 years until he got in hot water and then was booted and then went to Fox. But the point is, the chair is what matters, but the chair doesn't matter much more. You know what I mean? The institutions are crumbling, and I'm tempted to just let them crumble. I get more podcast listens than Anderson Cooper gets nightly views. I mean, the idea that we're always worried about what they're doing, yes, there's a feeling like, oh, we need to worry about it because they're brainwashing people. But, the more this blue state nonsense happens and we can't leave our houses and the rest of it, I think, as I said on Fox last night, it's like they're probably red-pilling people faster than we ever could. You know what I mean? Like, we can tell people facts. I think that was your point. We can calmly tell people facts, what's going on, wake people up. But the more that their lives actually get crushed by progressive big government policies, I saw a video this morning, I think a guy in Boston who was just basically screaming, I've had my business for 25 years. I'd rather open it up and take the risk with COVID. It's like, yeah, it's your business. It's your life. You're allowed to take risks. The progressives are basically saying, hey, no risk in life. No risk in life. We're just going to keep you in your house. And it wasn't me, but a wise man once said, those who would trade liberty for security deserve neither.
Speaking of Dave Rubin, author of Don't Burn This Book, which has, as he pointed out, already been rocketing up the bestseller list over at the New York Times. Dave, you have some exposure to the libs that others don't, and that you at one point worked at the Young Turks, right? Which or worked with the you were at the Young Turks. I'm just wondering what you did now that you are somebody, because they're not. Now, I'm sure you probably still have friends over there, so I'm not asking you to trash anybody or anything like that. But,
I don't.
Oh, okay, because they're the worst people in the universe. Yeah. So I'm just wondering what, what you learned from. I mean, they're the people that work over there, and without even getting into naming them, some of them are they're the ones that grab the pitchfork and the torch the fastest to. This person is a bigot or racist, deplatform them. They'll work with that horrible group, what's it called, Sleeping Giants, to try to get people boycotted. I mean, they're really at the, and look, this is to be a true progressive in good standing now, you have to embrace that stuff. I mean, the people that don't do that, I think, are always, they always wonder when they're coming for them next. So what did you learn from that process? Like, how can anyone work for Media Matters and sleep well at night, or the Young Turks?
No, look, I don't want to get into the specifics of the people, but I can broadly talk about it.
That's what I mean.
This is so consistent with what progressives do with everything. I mean, the Young Turks, they rail they'll scream all day long that everyone should be part of unions, and unions are great, but they're not a union shop themselves. They'll scream about $15 minimum wage, but don't pay their own people $15 minimum wage, and have a lot of, when I was there, had plenty of unpaid interns and all that kind of stuff. They'll scream that, Republicans and conservatives get big VC money and billionaires are backing everybody. And they got $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg, and they're in partnership, or at least were in partnership with Al Jazeera, which is owned by the government of Qatar, which, by the way, uses slave labor. But, let's not, they're good lefties, so let's not bother them with that. The hypocrisy is off the charts. I would say in almost every case, what I learned about progressives by being there is they put forth a set of rules that they don't play by, but they expect everyone else to play by them. And I think actually Trump's greatest skill was understanding that very early on. Other Republicans, McCain, Romney, the other guys that they ran, the average Republicans, and you see it with all the Never Trumpers now. It's like you guys are playing by a set of rules that are not fair to you. You're playing by as if the game is equal, but you have more rules than the other team, and you always wonder why you lose. Trump was just like, I see you guys. You guys are all cheaters. I'm going to do whatever I have to do, and that is why he has completely flipped these people out and decimated the media in the process. That doesn't mean that Trump is a perfect moral archetype of what a man should be or anything like that, but in that regard, I think he's been a net good. But I would say generally, if you show me a progressive, within 2 seconds, you will find the worst sort of authoritarian right underneath that fancy veneer.
That's funny. I'm assuming Michael Malice. It seems like he's the kind of guy that would have come across your radar.
I love Malice. Yeah. Malice is a great thinker.
But we just hung out for a while on Sunday on his show and chatted about things. And what came up was, I told him, and I think he signed off on this too, that the revolutionary strategy that Trump had was when they would punch him in the face, so to speak, instead of saying, hey, don't do that, let's be better than that, and then get punched in the face again, he actually said, okay, I'm going to punch you even harder. It's really that straightforward in politics, because you mentioned Romney and McCain. Those guys were being bashed in ways that, and they were supposed to like it. That's really, if you believe the progressives and the leftist narrative, they deserve it somehow, and maybe they can feel like better people at night. But I know we could talk about this for a very long time. Before we let you get back to spreading freedom out in California, which certainly needs to happen.
It ain't easy, man. It ain't easy.
Do you think that people have learned in the aggregate? And it's very tough, but have we learned the right lesson here from the lockdowns and everything? Do people see this the way they should, or are you afraid that if anything, it just emboldens the kind of never Trump government will solve everything mentality, and how that will play out this fall when there's an election?
Yeah, well, it does expose a lot of the left's nonsense. It's like, on one hand, you're telling me Hitler's in charge of the government, and on the other hand, you're telling me, we have to let the government tell us that we can only live in our houses. It seems like they don't seem to get that disconnect there. As I said earlier, I think the silver lining to all of this is the more authoritarian a government becomes, I think the more it wakes up good people to what freedom actually is. So short of an economic collapse that is beyond unimaginable, and I'm talking about something significantly worse than what we have right now, despite how bad it is and 30 million people out of work and the rest of it. If we don't get to that point, I think it bodes well for Trump. I think that most of the issues that Trump has been talking about, China and borders, Second Amendment, things like that, free speech, these things are all winners, I think, on the conservative side come the election. The only thing is, look, we're 5 months out from it or something like that at this point, a little more than 5 months, actually. So anything can happen at this point. Anything can happen. I'm not even convinced that Biden's going to be the nominee. So it's like we got a weird thing coming politically. My hope is, and it's the only thing that allows a guy like me to stay in L.A. and probably a guy like you to stay in New York, that the more that these guys encroach, the more that de Blasio puts these absurd policies in to just quash people while he wanders around the park, that they will wake up. So it's like, for all of us, it's like, do you stay and fight or do you bolt? Texas is looking pretty good these days.
Yeah, producer Mark and I keep saying Florida's calling our name. So, or Texas, either one. We got great stations in both states. We can go hang out. Anyway, Dave Rubin, everybody. The book is Don't Burn This Book. The Rubin Report is the show. Mr. Rubin, great to finally have you. Thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with the book.
Good seeing you, Buck. Be good.
Why have they failed to get this money out to the folks who desperately need it to stay afloat? Is it incompetence? Corruption? Trump was out there tweeting again this morning. I call him President Tweety. Reopen the country, end of quote. How are we supposed to do that if you're sitting on the money small businesses need in order to stay alive? Stop tweeting about it. Get the money out to Main Street now. It's there. It's been passed. This pandemic is hitting everyone hard. We need serious, competent leadership now more than ever.
I gotta tell you, there's just something so perfect about a bunch of geese honking in the background. You hear that, producer?
I mean, at least he's out of the basement, right?
I guess. I just think it's so funny. It's like, what are the chances that you have a flock of geese like flying right behind Blue Collar Joe? Is, yeah, you got to get the money to Main Street and the Wall Street and and FDR landed on the moon and Abraham Lincoln took a Corvette to meet him. And he's like, what is this guy talking about? It's wild. This guy's wild. It's crazy. Oh, like in the background. Oh, so great. Oh, Biden. Oh, but he gave Trump a nickname, President Tweety. I would leave the nicknames. Look, Marco Rubio, I feel like, is finally starting to get his groove back. He's now the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee because Burr, who had done nothing. Can we just remember this for a second? That the Senate Intelligence Committee, how many important hearings did they have? What, did they try to get to the truth of the Russia collusion nonsense? No, nothing from them. Nothing. It's Republican majority in the Senate. So, I think Marco Rubio has to be better than Burr and probably isn't going to do any insider trading. Allegedly, which is what Burr did, allegedly. But when you start to mess with nicknames with Trump, it's like you're entering the Thunderdome with the king of the Thunderdome. That's not a good idea. You don't want to, producer Mark, who is like the greatest hockey enforcer? See, I've learned terms now of all time.
Probably Marty McSorley.
Right? If you're having a bad day on the ice, do you throw off your gloves and try to get into it with Marty McSorley? Probably not.
No, probably not. No.
Right. That's what you're doing when you do nicknames with Trump. You're going up against the guy that's got 5 inches on you and has like 2 front teeth missing from all of his previous brawls and just loves the pain. Okay, that's the guy you don't want to get into a fight with. Who's got like knuckles the size of golf balls. Like, that's not the guy you want to be throwing down with. But he wants to call him President Tweety. He's going to have to deal with the consequences.
It's time for Roll Call.
In case you were worried about this, I just want to tell you something right now. The UN is on the case of gender descriptive language. The United Nations put out a tweet. I mean, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. They put out this tweet yesterday. What you say matters. This is from the UN official account. Help create a more equal world by using gender neutral language if you're unsure about someone's gender or are referring to a group. So instead of policeman, right, or say police officer. Instead of landlord, owner. Boyfriend or girlfriend, partner. Salesman, salesperson. Manpower, no. Workforce. Maiden name, family name. Fireman, firefighter. Husband, wife. No, can't say husband, wife. Spouse. Thanks, United Nations bureaucrats. We all sleep better at night knowing that you are a giant waste of taxpayer resources and time. So there is that. Okay. One more thing before we get to the roll call. Do you want Fauci on your body, as in on your underwear? It's a fair question to ask. There's an L.A. clothing brand putting Fauci, Cuomo, and Newsom's names on underwear. This is a branding campaign to brand your butt with Cuomo or Newsom. That's right. You're going to have their name on you. Is this going to work? I don't know. But if you're ever wondering if liberalism is a mental disorder, I think this would be an exhibit in and of itself. Fauci underwear? What? And think about this. This isn't really a gag, right? I mean, you're not wearing this because no one else is going to see your underwear. Now, maybe it doesn't really sell, but, here we are. New York Post has written about it, and I'm talking about it. Okay, with that, Producer Mark, if we get you some Fauci boxers, you into that or nah?
I mean, I don't really look for what the underwear looks like. Is it comfortable?
That's a fair point. I mean, is this high-quality cotton?
Exactly.
Hey. So we got roll call to get to, which is, I love to do, because I want to hear from all of you. Facebook.com/BuckSexton. Also, BuckSexton.com, your one-stop shop. It's where we put all the fun things, stories from the day, stuff from the show. We're working on getting gear there. It's just we got a lot of things going on, and there we have it. So with that, roll call. Jeff writes, good day. Hoping all's well in the Freedom Hut. I am a welder and one of the lucky workers called back to a small company after we became essential after 3 weeks of lockdown. I'm concerned that no news outlet, including Fox, has pushed back against tyrant Whitmer and her racist claims. The swastikas she speaks of is a Photoshop of her in a Nazi SS uniform, and the rebel flag is half stars and bars and half stars and stripes. I am not naive enough to say no moron was waving racist garbage around, but those two previously mentioned are by far what was mostly in circulation, 99.9%. I also see nothing wrong with law-abiding citizens exercising their Second Amendment right lawfully, considering most news outlets will cover the protests negatively anyway. I listen every day under my welding mask, love the show, so keep up the great work. P.S. I'm not a fan of him and belly roll when you employ his persona, but I am convinced Alex Jones has got to be as accurate with his news as ABC, CNN, NBC.
Well, that's right. They're information warfare. I mean, they're just coming out there trying to tell people all the lies, all the untruth. And he's bona fide, 100% pure Angus beef of a man, Alex Jones. Yeah, that's right. I will eat my neighbor. I'll eat him. Producer Mark, are you my neighbor?
Thank goodness, no.
Well, then you don't have to worry about me eating you. I will eat my neighbor.
It's very important that you remember that. Brian. Buck, keep up the good work. I've been a listener since the Blaze days, but the past year or so, you have become not to be missed listening for me. Thank you so much, Brian. I don't miss a podcast. I appreciate your well-reasoned analysis and commentary and your ability to be a voice of reason in these crazy days. Keep it up. By the way, tell Producer Mark to keep up the good work, too. Your banter back and forth is a highlight of the show for me, and I'm 100% on board with the beer and bourbon salty version of the podcast you recently suggested. Do it! Well, that'd be kind of fun. But, I actually have to say, I don't know how folks would feel about this, because on this show, because we also, this show runs on radio stations, so there are FCC rules. So I can't, and I've established that, this is part of my brand, is you listen to the Buck Sexton show. I do not use foul language, and, you can listen to this show with any member of your family, with kids of any age, and, we talk about serious stuff and intense stuff, but, there's not going to be any potty mouth stuff going on here. That said, I do think that time and place matters, and I have thought about, especially when I'm in other venues or in other situations, say going on either HBO or doing someone's YouTube show, if they're a little bit more free with their language. I've thought about that because in my private life, as I've told you, everyone who knows me, I do curse off air. I mean, I'm not somebody that doesn't, I don't object to cursing in certain circumstances. Producer Mark's probably laughing because he knows I'm not shy with salty language.
Can confirm.
But I also feel like for some of you, you appreciate that in my public speech, in my persona out there in media, everything that I'm doing, I keep it clean all the time. But if if that's not really the consensus, it'd be kind of fun to go on some of these other. It will never happen on radio because we're not allowed to, and also I've established that this is a clean lyrics only show, if you will, and always will be. But in some other places, I don't know. I've thought about it sometimes, but I don't know. I feel like once you break down that barrier, producer Mark, all of a sudden I want to just start dropping F-bombs like a B-52.
Yeah,
you can't have that.
It makes a lot of extra work for me if you start cursing on this show, because then I have to bleep it.
Yeah,
but if you accidentally
we never
do
would
it.
We never would on this show. I mean, our audience expects a certain level.
I meant if you accidentally did it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you started doing other places.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, because I've had days where I get so annoyed about something, I get so irritated that I just, I can't handle it anymore, and I just want to let it rip. But I can't do it. Can't do it. We'll do it live. Lori, Buck, I'm just watching or catching up on podcasts. Haven't checked in for a while. Well, Lori, we have missed you. Weighing in on my favorite M&M flavor, coffee nut. They're the best. I'm also, with producer Mark, being a huge hockey fan and really missing playoff hockey. There's just no other sport event as exciting. We're opening back up in Ohio and headed to SC, South Carolina, for vacay in a couple weeks, where almost everything is open. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Lori. And yes, indeed, I hear you on all that, and thank you so much for writing in. And Mark, how much do you miss hockey? You may address the legions of Team Buck.
I mean, I agree that Lori saying that playoff hockey is the best sporting event in the world. That is true, and I miss it so much. But at this point, I'd watch the NBA playoffs. I'd watch anything. Maybe not NASCAR. I'm sorry for you NASCAR fans out there, but I saw NASCAR's back. I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah. But it looks like there's some momentum to sports coming back. I think baseball is going to be back in July, and it looks like the NBA and NHL might follow suit as well.
All right.
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear. Look, I want sport. I would love that there was football in the fall. I will watch some, because now that it's gone, or rather now that sports in general are gone, I do miss that they're around. I think that it's nice to have the options. What I'm trying to say, I want that freedom.
Sure.
I want that.
Well, it looks like the NFL will start on time, so you don't have to worry about that.
It really? Oh, that's good news. I was unaware of that. Milwaukee, which means the good land. All right, more roll call here. Greetings from the People's Republic of Illinois. I've been following you since the Real News on the Blaze and part of the original Saturday Squad, and now a faithful podcast listener. Ooh, OSS to podcast listener. That's what I like to hear. You are, in my estimation, the most intelligent and articulate voice on the airwaves. I love your history dives, every impression you've ever done, and your lighthearted banter with producer Mark. Not only do you keep me safe and warm at night, but also calm and sane during the day. I have 2 strikes against me with this COVID business. I have an autoimmune disease, and I'm over 65. Nevertheless, I stand firmly with you. Our tyrannical governor needs to let us go. It is not everybody else's responsibility to keep me safe. It is mine. Illinois was in bad shape before the virus hit. With his policies, Pritzker is ensuring our complete demise. I'm against a federal bailout as well, which is what he probably wants. Freedom, in all caps, shields high. Great note, Susan. Thank you for the very kind words. It's really, these days in particular, really nice to have some encouragement, and especially, given what we're all going through and the putting the show on every day. And, it's a challenge when some days you just want to start walking around screaming profanity at the idiots in charge, that you got to go up and actually do radio every day. So, indeed. That's where we are on all this. So as for your sense of the risks you're willing to take and your view of things, Susan, I appreciate your honesty and your bravery and understanding that everybody has to be the arbiter of their own risk. Everybody has to be willing to make their own decisions about their lives every day and in so many different ways. So, yes, I'm with you on all that. And God bless, stay safe, and thank you so much. You've been listening to me now. I think the Buck Sexton radio show began, and some of you listening know this better than me. The Buck Sexton radio show first started on Saturdays in February of 2012. So we are now in the 9th year, I think, because we've been doing it for 8 years. So we're now in the 9th year of the show. And apparently the 10th year, the 10th year of anything is when you become a true expert. So producer Mark, next year is when we make it rain. Dollar bills.
I'm good with that as long as I actually see some of it.
Yeah. No, we'll make sure that happens. So let's hope that's the trajectory of things right now. Let's hope they don't try to shut us all down again in the winter, too. That'll be a total nightmare. So we can't allow that. Jake writes, James Buckman Sexton. Indeed, my full name. Jake knows it. I am running with my dog on a beautiful day here in Georgia. I'm listening to your podcast with Nicole Arbor. That was fun, wasn't it? And I thought I heard you say you hadn't seen Remember the Titans. I mean, you can't be serious, sir. Whatever you're doing at the time of this reading, cease immediately and turn on Remember the Titans. Hands down the best sports movie ever and an amazing true story. A friend of mine became acquainted with the real Coach Boone following the movie, and he is an incredible guy. Prepare yourself a medium rare ribeye, some mashed potatoes, and a gluten-free apple cobbler a la mode. Then settle in for a cinematic journey that is essential. Rant complete. It's a good rant. I guess I got my orders for this weekend.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, Remember the Titans is a fantastic movie.
Top 5 for you for the sports movie?
Oh, absolutely. Slam dunk. Yeah.
Top 5, huh? Yeah, never seen Remember the Titans. Never seen. I did see Miracle. It was very, very good. I agree. It was a very good movie. And isn't it funny? You change Kurt Russell's hair and put him in one of those really ugly sport jackets that people used to wear in the early '80s, and he's just like he's like the coach from Boston,
Herb Brooks.
Herb Brooks from Boston. Yeah, exactly. So was he considered pretty apt in his portrayal of Mr. Brooks?
Yes, for sure. People definitely rave about his performance.
Because I will tell you, I thought the movie Foxcatcher, which is excellent, and it is a sports movie, I thought it was the movie was just disturbing for me, right? So I was super. Well, you've seen that, right?
No.
That's insane.
What is it even about? Do they catch foxes?
No, about like Olympic wrestling, not.
I don't care.
Wow, producer Mark, I think you're missing out on this one. Because it's a very good movie, and I'm not somebody that usually gets excited. First of all, wrestling, like, come on, it's like not even a sport anymore at most schools. They got rid of it because of Title IX pressure. But you know who was actually a great wrestler? It was Jim Jordan of Ohio. I think he was a state champion.
Really?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But the movie's about this billionaire from the DuPont family who tries to build the greatest American Olympic wrestling team of all time, and it ends in tragedy. But all I can tell you is that Steve Carell playing this guy, I actually was curious because I had read so much about how good he was at it. If you watch the video of the actual guy and then you watch Steve Carell, Steve Carell's an incredible actor. He doesn't get enough credit.
That's true. When he does the serious stuff, nobody ever watches it because they expect Steve Carell. Oh, he's just the funny guy, but he's actually really good.
Well, I think that comedy is the hardest thing, and being a comedian is the hardest. That the hardest of all the jobs that people have in media. That's the one thing. Like stand-up comedy, I've said this before. I've filled in on the biggest radio show in the country. I do radio every day. I'll do TV, any TV show. I'll go into any environment and do all that stuff. The one thing that I would have nightmares about would be getting ready to do stand-up. But maybe that means I should do it. Producer Mark, you could sit in the audience and be like, "You have terrible."
Oh, I would be heckling you so much.
You can heckle me, You'd be like, "Hey, everybody, I just flew in from Manhattan, and boy, are my arms tired." Dun. Mark would be like, "Get off the stage."
I would pay money to go watch you at an open mic night. I would pay so much money for it.
It would be bad. It'd be kind of funny because, the thing is, I have such a comfort. I mean, we speak to our beloved audience here every day, but I mean, in a room full of strangers like that live, trying to make them laugh, it's hard. All right, next up here, Stacy. Buck, I love your show. I live in Minnesota. I'm 65 years old, and I've had enough of COVID. I booked up a trip by air to South Carolina to knock a few things off my bucket list. I feel so free and alive now. I'd rather die than live under my bed. I'm going to live and stimulate the economy. Shields high. Well, Stacy, God bless. I really admire your getting out there and, living life. Take care of yourself. Be safe. But that's true all the time, right? We're always trying to stay healthy and make smart decisions. Patrick writes, you hate on almost every baseball movie ever. How can you not include The Natural or 42 in your top 5? Baseball is America's pastime. Are you a commie? Producer Mark picked that one.
Yep, definitely picked out that message specifically.
What's 42?
Oh, 42 is the biopic on Jackie Robinson. Actually, very, very well done.
Oh, I don't know. That actually sounds like it might be a very good movie, so maybe I'll check that one. And I don't know. I've already got I Remember the Titans. That's next on my sports movie list. Folks, always an honor and a pleasure to have you here with me in the hut. Pass along the Buck Sexton podcast to somebody. Remember, you can go to bucksexton.com or just on Spotify or the Apple Podcast Store. It's free. Listen. Shields high.